Hi there, welcome to this week's edition of the Inside Track with Scotty Sun. I've got tipster Jim Delahunt here with me. How are you, Jim? We've got a good weekend of action up north with the Eider, down at Kempton with the Adonis and the Pendil. You looking forward to it?
Yeah, very much so, Robert. Looking forward to a decent weekend. This Newcastle Kempton weekend's always very good with the Ladbroke Trophy and the Eider. So a couple of decent handicap chases for us to get our teeth into later on. And we see the Grand National winner coming back in the Bobby Joe at Fairyhouse in Ireland on Sunday. So we'll give that a wee mention later on the programme.
Well, we'll just take a quick look back at last weekend where we had the Kingwell Hurdle at Wincanton. We both thought if Burdett Road was going to have any chance of being mildly competitive in a champion hurdle, he had to come out and win this. He didn't. He finished second to Golden Ace. She's now being kept on 144 for her win. County Hurdle looks like the plan there. Burdett Road, would you see him going down the handicap route as well now?
I would think he would have to. I'd be very surprised to see him turn up in the champion hurdle after that performance. Which I mean, it wasn't a bad performance, but it's not going to win a champion hurdle. And I think if Jeremy Scott's on, it's neither's golden ace. But we know that she's got Cheltenham form. We know she's very good in the spring. You mentioned the handicap, Mark. Don't see any problem with that at all. And county hurdle entry says it all. I suspect that that's the way she'll go. Not ready to tie my flag to any pole at the moment, but golden ace, Cheltenham. March, spring, decent ground, makes sense.
Yeah. Haydock, we had the Prestige. We were most looking forward to seeing Derry Hassan Paddy running. He was a late non-runner due to the ground. But the other horse we flagged up as being interesting, the one that could be a big improver, Battleborn Lad, came out, pill at the post job, won very impressively. He now goes to Aintree. Can you see him being a contender in the Sefton?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with that performance. I really thought that was very good indeed. I'd be slightly more worried than some people with just the way he behaved at the end of the race. You just never know if he's going to do that during a race or try and duck out at a gate back to the stables or whatever. But apart from that, looks a very good horse, looks a horse on the upgrade, and one, Robert, you'd want to have on your side going forward, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. His running style would suit the Sefton, I think, as well, just going out in front and it'd be hard to catch.
Yeah, going around that flat track, I'm not saying Haydock's exactly the same as Aintree, but very similar in terms of the bends, in terms of the flat track, no undulations. That makes sense, and as I say, very much one to keep on side. But I'd just be slightly worried about what's going on up there in the noggin.
We also had the Grand National trial, which was won by Famous Bridge from Apple Away. Probably a pointer to the Scottish National more than the Aintree one, would you think? I mean, Apple Away's performance was quite eye-catching. She didn't get the job done after the last, but I think they now know she likes these marathon trips and better ground might suit her. Is she one in the shortlist for air later in the year?
Yeah, very much so, Robert. I've been thinking this for quite a while, even before last weekend. Apple Away, I thought Derek Fox rode a decent race to a point, but I think he'll now know that that mare can be held up even longer, especially going over 4 miles. And it will be, I mean, we always say it might be soft at air in April, but it very rarely is. But the good thing about Apple Away is she's won on genuine spring, good to soft ground twice in the past. That was the season before last. She won on good to soft and good at Doncaster and Ayr. So she does handle spring ground. We know she stays. I mean, that 3.5 miles the other day was a real slog. I think 4 miles at Ayr will be right up her street. I think she only went up £1 in the handicap, so that's not a bad mark at all. And I think that she's very much one to be on the short list, if that's the way you want to put it, for the Scottish Grand National at Ayr. And I would think, without even speaking to Lucinda Russell or Peter Scudamore, that would be one of the options for her, and very much a main one.
Yeah, you would think that's where she'll be targeted now. We we've got a new favourite for the bumper at Cheltenham, a race that you're always best leaving late on because your Willie Mullins and that don't tend to bring their good horses out until later in the spring. Game of inches yesterday at Punchestown, Jim. Shot to the head of the market. Caroline Tisdall, who used to have all her horses in Britain, she's now got more horses trained in Ireland with Willie Mullins. Were you impressed by that performance? And do you think he deserves to be the head of the market now?
Yeah, I watched the race live and then watched it back several times last night just to get a better handle on it. It was impressive, but you got to wonder what exactly the horse beat at Punchestown yesterday at this stage of the season. What was going to be running in a bumper at Punchestown in February? But the people who know the Willie Mullins stable seem to like it. Having said that, Ruby Walsh, who has breakfast in the Willie Mullins yard every single morning, came out at a Cheltenham preview night last week in Ireland and said that Copacabana was his best bet of the entire meeting. Now, I don't need to tell you that that horse is in the bumper and was ridden by Patrick Mullins on its last start. And that was the horse that impressed me. Long before I saw that race yesterday, I thought Copacabana won really, really well on his start last time. It looks a horse which will improve with racing. It looks a horse that will improve going a really strong gallop. It looks a horse that will be suited by Cheltenham. And never one to throw Ruby Welsh's opinion aside. The fact that he thought the same as me, I'm very, very pleased with that. But we'll see, because Patrick Mullins has ridden both. And on the build up to Cheltenham, we'll see which one he's edging towards. But for me, 5-1 Copacabana against 4-1 Top Price Game of Inches. That's the one I'm with at the moment.
Well, look at this weekend's racing now. I mean, we've got the Adonis, the big juvenile hurdle down at Kempton, which we thought we were going to see one of Henderson's potential superstars in Lumumba and Palladium. And having praised him a few weeks ago for being the new aggressive Nicky Henderson and campaigning his horses and wanting to race them, he's pulled both of them out and will now go for a dreaded racecourse gallop before Cheltenham. The race is kind of taking on a different dimension now. How much were you looking forward to seeing one of those two or both of those two? And is there anything in the Adonis that you would maybe flag up now?
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing one of them, because he did assure us that he was going to have that gallop and then decide which one went to Kempton and which one was kept for Cheltenham. But he's decided that neither will go to Kempton. He's not really given a satisfactory reason for that, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and we'll just wait and see how good those two 4-year-olds are. I don't have any opinion betting wise on this race, but I think the horse we all have to have a look at here is Mondo Man. Gary and Josh Moore. Caelan Quinn's going to take them out this weekend. Came from France with a huge reputation, ran in the French Derby, ran very well in the French Derby. Came over here, ran at Royal Ascot in the King Edward VII, ran a very good race in the Edward VII. They have put it over hurdles. It ran very well first time out, second first time out. I think that was at Ascot, but obviously they thought he was suited by that track, having run at the Royal Meeting. Mondo Man, I think, is the one that you have to look at in this race. Again, I'm not going to have a bet, but I'll have a very close look at it and just see if it is a hurdler or if it's going to be a horse they'll keep for the flat later in the season.
The Novice Chasers have got a big race here. The Pendil over 2.5 miles. We've got Rubo in the race. We've got Ashdale Bob across from Ireland. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, you finally got me to risk 50 pence, because I'm going to go for Rubo in this race. I really liked the way he finished his race out at Warwick last time. It was his second attempt over fences, because, of course, he fell in that race that Sergino won at Kempton, I think it was. He's back at Kempton, 2.5 miles, grade 2, Paul Nicholls. Horses starting to hit form at the right time. We can argue about the quality of the Nicholls horses, but they are starting to hit form. I think this is one of his better ones, and I suspect he'll be good enough to hold off Ashdale Bob. Now, Ashdale Bob's an interesting one because the hurdles form is top class. We cannot argue with that. Jesse Harrington bringing a horse over here, a 10-year-old going over fences. We've got nothing to go on, absolutely zero form to go on. We don't know how well Jesse's horses are at the moment. We'll just have to wait and see. But James Bowen takes them out. That's obviously the Nicky Henderson connection with Jesse. She's asked which jockey should I put up. Nicky said James Bowen. He rides Ashdale Bob. But I think Rubo in receipt of £5, and after that run at Warwick last time, is probably going to be good enough to win this. And I'll be having a small bet on that.
We've also got the novice race, the Dovecote as well, where we've got Miami Magic, Tripoli Flyer. I believe you fancy Celtic Dino in this one, Jim.
Yeah, very much so. And I don't want to sound as if I'm just going to be all Sam Thomas this weekend, because I'm going to be all over one of his horses in the big race later on. But Celtic Dino, although beaten in a Grade 1 at Aintree last time, I thought did run a decent race, but probably not suited by the track. I think he will be better suited going back right-handed. I think he's got a lot of class about him. I think Dylan Johnson will get the best out of him in this 2 miles Dovecote. It's a Grade 2 at Kempton on Saturday. He's a horse which I think will be much better, as I say, going right-handed, and I think we'll see the best of him. Without going overboard beforehand, I think we'll see the best of him in this race on Saturday, and I would make him my selection here.
Yeah, in the 3:35, we talked about Lowry's Bar last week in terms of the Reynolds He was pulled out late. I believe he had a bruise. Absolutely fine this week. He lines up here. I think he's got a big chance of winning this race. I think his running style will suit Kempton. He goes out for the front. Now, he'll have to jump better than he did at Windsor, where he let Jinko Blue back into it with a horrendous mistake, 2 out. I actually thought when he didn't run last week, I thought they might just put him away and go to the Ultima, but they obviously feel they need to get
Yeah, they need a run.
another run into him, maybe just to iron out these jumping problems. But I think his running style out in front, although he won't get it all his own way with Highland and Tamuras in the race.
Yeah.
But if he's a horse that they seem to think he is, if he turns it, he jumps a bit better than he did at Windsor, where he gave Jinko Blue plenty to think about. I think at 11 to 2, he's got a chance. But have you got a selection this one as well?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I take every single point on board with Lowry's Bar, but we have to remember it's not the plan. This is not the plan. The plan was last week. He has had a minor setback, but he's clearly fit enough to run this week. So good luck to Connections there. He is a good horse. Merits top weight on the form we've seen so far. Mikey Nolan is going to be in the saddle on that one. You mentioned Highland as well, having his last run before the Grand National. Will he be fully tuned up by Nicky? Well, he can afford to go and win it and not get a penalty. So we shall see about Highland with Nico de Boinville on that one. But Sam Thomas runs 2 here. He runs Our Power, which has been second twice this season at Cheltenham, and is the mount of Dylan Johnson, which I think is significant. And he also runs Katati Dory, which is right down the bottom of 10 stone 5, and gets the assistance of Charlie Deutsch, which is not to be sniffed at in a big handicap chase, as we all know. But I think very much that Our Power is the main selection for Sam Thomas. He's won this race before. It was 2 years ago, and the year before that, he finished third in the race. He's since running a Grand National. They don't even have an entry for the Grand National this time. I think this is the seasonal target after those 2 runs at Cheltenham. I think you'll be much better going round this way right-handed, and Our Power is very much my selection for this Ladbrokes Trophy. I made him the headline bet in the column, the inside track column in the Scottish Sun on Thursday, and I think that he's going to stand up to that assessment. I'm very, very hopeful that Our Power will win that race.
Well, we'll go up to Newcastle now, and we'll focus on the Eider first of all, where the chasers will certainly be going at a different pace than they are at Kempton to try and get this 4 miles plus. Anglers Crag is the one that you put up in the paper, Jim. I just wonder if you give us your case for him and maybe a couple of the other ones you think might be dangerous.
Yeah, we know all about Brian Ellison and his affinity for Newcastle, having been born and brought up very close to the track. He has been trying for years to win the Northumberland Plate. He finally did it last year. Well done him. I think that was the horse that went to the Melbourne Cup. His name escapes me right at this moment. You're going to tell me very shortly. But Anglers Crag is the horse that he won the Eider Chase with last year. And it looks very much to me, Robert, that he's been aiming this horse back at this race all season. He is back down to within, I think, £4 of the mark that he won off last year. Craig Nicol, who I think I've said before in this programme, he's one of the most underrated jockeys in the weighing room. I think he will give this horse a great ride. Now, remember, this race, we say that, the Eider's a 4 miler. It's 4 miles, 1.5 furlongs round Newcastle. So it's nearly 4.25 miles. That's 4.5 anywhere else. Anglers Crag loves this course and distance. I thought he ran an eye-catching race at Musselburgh. Well, that track would not suit him at all, even though it was a long-distance chase. And I think Anglers Crag will be primed to repeat his win of last year. And I'm going to be giving him, for what it's worth, Robert, I'm going to be giving him the nap selection in the paper on Saturday.
Well, you know we like a Sue Smith horse in this programme, and O'Connell seems to have a pretty obvious chance, doesn't he? I mean, you put him up at Sandown where he just looked an absolute grinder, and he could just be a wee bit classier than these other ones. But at 11 to 2, up £22 for 3 wins, probably going to leave him alone and take one at a bigger price, 16 to 1. Bodies that for John McConnell. Now, the one thing you don't really know what you're getting with the McConnell horses at the moment. Some of them come out and win. They're kind of in and out of form a bit. Yeah. But he ran in the same race at Musselburgh as Anglers Crag ran in, and was sitting about 5th or 6th coming around the bend at the bottom, and just stayed on and stayed on and stayed on. I mean, this horse is as slow as an oil tanker, but he'll just stay all day, stay all day, stay all day. So I think at 16 to 1, he's got a right chance of hitting the frame. It won't, I mean, good to soft ground. It won't be as testing as it has been in previous years for the Eider, but I think the good to soft ground will actually suit him. He's been placed 3 times out of 3 when he's running these conditions. We know he'll get the trip, having got the trip in Musselburgh to finish second. So at 16 to 1, I think he's a decent each way bet.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that, Robert. Absolutely not. And I always say to people when they come up and ask me about the Grand National and stuff like that, and they say, what about this, what about that? And I'll say, I will not be at all surprised if that horse wins. And that's exactly my reaction to that. I would not be surprised if that horse won. I would not be surprised at all if O'Connell improved enough to defy a £22 hike for winning his last 3 races. I just think the £10 that he's got for Sandown might anchor him this time. But again, no surprise from me if O'Connell goes and wins, or the McConnell horse. But I'm sticking with Angus Crag. I think he's been trained for the race. I think everything's in his favour this weekend, and I'm pretty sure Craig Nicol, who of course lost a ride on Derry Hassan Paddy last week, I think he'll be looking for another flag bearer going forward.
Yeah, we'll just have a look at the rest of the card, Jim. I believe you've got a selection in the 245.
Yeah, 245, Young Getaway. Yeah, interesting horse this. Nicky Richards runs this one. He ran over 2.5 miles last time, drops back to 2 miles. He's got some nice form in novice hurdles before that disappointing effort over 2.5 last time. I don't think this is the greatest race in the world. And again, without going overboard, I think Young Getaway for the Nicky Richards, Sean Quinlan combination might just win that maiden hurdle, which is the race run after the Eider.
We move on to the 355, and I fancy one in this called Big Boy Bobby for Alan King, who's not a trainer that sends his horses north that much. He comes up to Ayr for the Scottish National. He'll maybe have this Eider meeting he'll target, but not somebody that sends him north very, very often. This was a really promising hurdler in 2022. He ran in a handicap hurdle at Kempton, and he beat Lou de Sud, Favois, who went on to win the county hurdle that year, and the Can Do Kid, who won the Hennessy or the Ladbrokes Trophy or Coral Cup or whatever it's called now, and is now one of the fancies for the Grand National. So, I mean, there's some really, really nice bit of form there in that race. He had 2 poor runs after that in 2022 into 2023. Was off for 18 months after that, so there must have been a physical issue bothering him, so you can pretty much forget those. He came back in December and finished second at Kempton. He's up £3 for that, but he's only been raised to 117. And if you look at the form of the horses that he beat at Kempton back in the day, who are now rated in the 140s, 150s, higher than that, I would be very surprised if he's not a lot better than 117. So that run the last time out, horses coming back off a long break for injury, you're always worried that, have they lost it? Finished second at Kempton the last time, showed there's a bit of life there. So I think Big Boy Bobby in the 355 is well worth a look.
Yeah, you make a great case for that, Robert. But as ever, I'm going to drop a fly in your ointment, and I'm going to suggest a horse called Bust a Move, trained by Mick and David Easterby, 4-year-old, having its first run in a handicap over hurdles. Gets a £12 weight for age allowance right down at the bottom of the handicap here. Jack Tudor, I think, is a fantastic booking for Mick and David. Jamie Hamilton wouldn't do 10 stone 2 if you cut one of his legs off. So Jamie's been riding it over hurdles. I think it won, where did it win? It won at Catterick first time, but then finished third at Wetherby, when maybe Jamie could have been a little bit more aggressive, I thought. But it's the flat form that's the key here, Robert. He was rated, or he is rated, 77 on the flat. I've actually done my own sums, and I reckon he probably should be 82. Now, if you do the old rule of thumb and add 50 to that and get 132, you would think that's what he's capable of over hurdles. Well, he's in here off 114. I think he's got an outstanding chance. I think Jack Tudor's a tremendous booking. I think this, if they're going to win a handicap, this is the one they're going to win, because I don't think the handicapper will let them off with this. I think Bust a Move, hopefully at a price, will give your Big Boy Bobby something to think about.
Well, that's the one I was going to put up until I got seduced by that Kempton form that Lou said and all the superstars. So hopefully we'll be able to have the one too, Jim.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But I think we are going to agree on one before we finish, aren't we? Bois Guilbert.
Yes, I'm glad you said it rather than me. I was worried about that. This horse, I've been waiting to see it going over fences. I saw it at Perth in September, and he jumped like a horse that had been getting schooled over fences.
Yeah.
So I actually come away. He finished third that day, behind 4 of a kind, Perth specialist. And I actually come away thinking, well, the next time you see this horse, he'll be in a novice chase. And he's not been. He's run 3 times over hurdles since then, and every time he's been hunted out the back. Barely put in the race. He's now back down to a pound lower than his last win in March, going over fences for the first time. Ran really well in a 4-year-old hurdle at Cheltenham a couple of years ago and got hiked up a bit in the weights for that. So he's maybe coming back down to where he should be, and he's winning mark. Back to 2 miles as well. His 3 wins over hurdles was over a 2-mile trip. He's been running over 2-mile 4 since then. Back to a trip we know he likes. A flat track should suit him. I would like to see him ridden more prominently. I think he's one of these. We can't tell you what price he's going to be. There's no prices out yet.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Patrick Wise lining him up in the front because two of his three wins over hurdles came when he was ridden prominently and they made plenty of use of him. So you'll get a good indication of how he's likely to run when you see him lining up at the start.
Yeah, I think he's the same as you, Robert. The first time I ever saw this horse, I thought, here's a chaser. And finally, we're going to see him over the fences. He's carries his, as you said, he carries his handicap hurdles mark over to fences because he's going into this novices handicap chase first time. He gets £3 from step out, which I think Stuart Crawford is sending over, with Ben Bromley taking £5 off, so we'll actually get £2. So I think that's the danger. Caldwell won a selling hurdle at some godforsaken track the other day. There's no way that can win, surely. Bois Guilbert for me, and I'm just hoping that he's a reasonable price and we can get our pound on.
Well, given the last three runs, and there's a pulled up in there as well, you would hope you would get a half decent price, but we'll just have to wait and see. Moving on to Sunday, the Bobby Joe, you've already mentioned it. I am Maximus back for his final prep for going back to try and win the Grand National for a second year. Have you had a good look at that, Jim? And is there anything sticks out?
Yeah, I've had a good look at it. I'll be writing more about it in the diary column on Sunday in the Scottish Sun. But you've mentioned I Am Maximus. The interesting thing is Paul Townend's riding that for Willie Mullins, and the JP stable jockey Mark Walsh is on Capodano. So you wonder if purely from this race point of view that Capodano might be the one. We shall see. But I suspect that it's very much a race to watch. Just let's see how I Am Maximus is. And let's see how the others fare. But it has been a good Grand National trial in the past, as I Am Maximus proved last year and others have proved in the past. But one to keep an eye on Sunday as we look ahead to Cheltenham.
Well, we'll have a look. Every week we've been having a look ahead to a race at the festival. So this week we'll have a look at the Turner's Novice Hurdle, where we've got Final Demand, obviously, for Willie Mullins, is favourite after winning the Dublin Racing Festival last time out. 6-4 for beating Wingmen, 12 lengths. What was your assessment of his performance that day, Jim? And can you see any holes in him?
Can't see any holes in him, no. And I think he's a top price 7-4 this morning, Robert. He looked very, very special at the Dublin Racing Festival. I think you have pointed out that he's only had 2 runs. Other winners of this race do tend to have had a bit more experience. You look through the roll call for this race, it is something else. I mean, Ishtabrak, of course, Forheen, of course, Danoli, remember Danoli, who used to bring his own priest with him from Ireland. Galileo, the Galileo won the Derby in 2001, and this sort of counterfeit Galileo won this race in 2002, and everybody thought, what on earth is going on here? But I think this one came from Poland. Hardy Eustace won it as well, of course. Ballyburn last year. So Final Demand is going to be in very good company if he can win this race. I think he's a very, very solid favourite at 7-4 at this stage of the game. I wouldn't be looking to bet against him. You do have to mention the New Lion, though. He's not been seen since December, but Dan Skelton is going straight to Cheltenham with him and seems to think he's the best novice he has ever had. That's quite a statement. Kawabunga, the horse that beat William Money last time, and William Money won at Punchestown on Thursday this week, looked very impressive. I'm actually going to say that William Money, if he lines up in this race against Kawabunga, that he will reverse that previous form. I think that's a horse very much on the upgrade. That's one to watch as well. We both know about the Yellow Clay. He's had so many runs. He does look to be on the upgrade, and Gordon Elliott had the first 3 in the Punchestown Grand National trial the other day after being quite sparing with his horses at the Dublin Racing Festival. So it could well be that his horses are coming into form just at the right time. Potter's Charm, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I was very disappointed with that horse. I think they must now be regretting running that horse at Cheltenham a couple of weeks ago. But Final Demand, very, very solid. Is there anything, Robert, you would put up against them?
Well, just on the subject of the New Lion, you're hearing people starting to crib the New Lion and, the form hasn't worked out and, he wasn't as impressive as we first thought and things like that. Is that maybe just because there's been so much distance? Because we've not seen him since December, where we've seen the other ones more recently? Or is there doubts about the form now? Is there doubts that he maybe wasn't as good as what we saw at Newbury?
Yeah, that has to be a worry. You're right about the first point, the distance. It was not so long ago, but it was a little bit longer ago than some of the others. So you're right about that. You do tend to drop out of the memory sometimes. On the actual form, it hasn't been rubber stamped 100 times. We've got to say that. And when you do look back at it, as I did this morning, just for one last look, just to convince myself otherwise, he maybe won too easily, because then you have to worry about what he actually beat, because Harry Skelton had a ton in hand. Now, if he did have a ton in hand, then he is going to be, look, a very good bet at 3-1. But you have to say that Final Demand, I thought, was much more impressive in stronger company at the Dublin Racing Festival, and he's probably the meritorious favourite at the moment.
Yeah, with the new lion, would you have liked to have seen him off the bridle at some point? Because he's won all
Yeah,
three
yeah,
races. He's never really had to put his head down and graft for it.
yeah,
Would you have
yeah,
liked? He's not going to be able to do that at the festival. He's going to have to get his head down and graft at some point, and that's
yeah.
maybe the one concern. That's maybe why the doubts are creeping in. That he's been so visually impressive, almost feels too good to be true. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I take your point, absolutely. And sadly for us, the first time we're going to see him with a gun at his head is the this race that we're talking about, the Turners. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm not putting up a bet at the moment, other than to say that it's very difficult to see past Final Demand at the moment.
Yeah, the one I think if it does come into a battle is the yellow clay.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
vastly experienced. He's had 9 runs now. He ground it out in Navan when he didn't run well that day at Navan. He thought he was
yeah,
beating Navan and he ground it out. Then he come back and he was impressive with the Lawlers and Ace. I think it's 7-1 against 74. I think the yellow clay is possibly the one I'd like to be with at the moment. There's one more. Is this Kai Dudathy?
yeah,
Another Willie Mullins one who was taken off his feet completely at
yeah,
the Dublin Racing Festival and co-picked the boards race. Taken off his feet completely. His jumping went to pieces. But he won at Leopardstown over 2.5, and he showed he had a right engine on him, and went out in the front. They tried to ride him for the front at the Dublin Racing Festival, and he just couldn't keep up with him. They just went past him, and he ended up just dropping back through the field. Although he did get back up to finish fourth, I believe. But at
yeah.
25-1, I think he's a horse with an engine, but he would have to jump a lot better. And I don't think he's going to get a freebie up front that he would need. But at 25-1, he's one to maybe take a second look at. But if I was having a bet right now, would be the yellow clay.
Yeah, all I would add to that, Robert, is that we're now getting into the period just before Cheltenham where we're starting to find out which jockeys are going to ride which horses, and that's when it just starts to firm up a little bit. So you've thrown in a few there that we just don't know what the choices are going to be. I threw in the two in the bumper earlier on. We just don't know which one Patrick Mullins is going to come down on side of. But it is starting to get fascinating, and I dare say we'll have more to say next week.
Brilliant, Jim. Thanks very much. Good luck with your bets this weekend. Good luck, folks.
You too, Robert. Good luck, everybody. Speak to you soon.